Peace, peace, peace. I am Dr. Philip Roundtree, and you are tuned into the July 31st edition of Rhetorically Speaking. Props to those of you who are watching on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever it is located. Share it, like it, comment it. You can be like, yo, this joint is whack. I'll take the hit for algorithm purposes, you know what I mean? Because engagement is what? Is engagement. Salute to those of you who are listening on streaming services wherever you get your podcast. If you're on Spotify, you know it's about to get increased to $1 more. So it's gonna go from like $14.99 to $15.99. Again, I'm letting y'all folk know who are using my Spotify account, who I willingly gave it to. I don't have the dollar. So I think you need to contribute or you're going to get knocked off. It's just a game. It's just where we are, where we are in 2023 with it. And last but not least, props to those of you who are watching this stream live on LinkedIn. Listen, I don't even know what the get down is on LinkedIn. I've been on there a few times. I just updated my profile because people are like, hey, Phil, you're a doctor now. You can't just have it as MSW, MS, and whatever acronyms you're typically used to have. You need to update your bio. You need to do all of this stuff. And I'm like, oh, word. So I went on there, I updated, I put a new pic up there because I don't have hair anymore. But on there, I had like my little high top with the faded sides, and I was smiling. I had my little chip tooth like Nas in the pic. I was feeling it because I took that on my phone somewhere out here in Philly. But that is no more. Then I saw an option that said, yo, you can stream live on here. So I'm like, why not? Let's get the bougie people, because that's all LinkedIn folk are. LinkedIn folk are bougie folk. All right, I take it back. I'm not going to say that. But there's something problematic about this idea of LinkedIn. Yes, I recognize that folk need jobs, but to have a platform dedicated 24/7, 365 days a year to this idea of work, which leans into this idea of capitalism, it's just for me who recognize how harmful the idea of work and how it's being perpetuated here in America specifically, and now it's all across the world at this point, just the dangers and the continuous promotion of work, like a Rihanna song. It just feels a little bit nasty and a little bit disingenuous to even be on here, to even be streaming live on here. There's not a guarantee that I'm gonna keep this up. But what I also realize is it's like a Tinder / Instagram for those of you with jobs. It's another attention-seeking mechanism. Again, I'm caught up in the matrix as well, hence the reason why I'm on here. But I digress. I'll say that for another day. So today we are going to have a conversation on RFK Jr., who appeared on the Math Hoffa podcast. It's a YouTube show, and if you're not familiar with Math Hoffa, he is a former battle rapper. I guess it's one of those things like Christianity. Once you're a Christian, you're always a Christian because you can't erase blood. So I think once you're a battle rapper, you're always a battle rapper. At any time, I'm sure you got bars in the tuck. So Math Hoffa is a battle rapper turned podcaster, YouTube host, who has a ever rising platform. He has not only his following from battle rap, but the following that he's accumulated as a result of this podcast, where he has on rappers, he has entertainers come on, and apparently he has white men who are politicians attempting to run for office who have problematic belief system come on as well. But then when we start to interrogate hip hop and we start to make comparisons between white men in power and individuals within the hip hop space, we're going to see some overlap. We're going to see some similarities in attributes. And typically I wouldn't even have this conversation on Math Hoffa or just any type of show where it's like pop culture, even though I do comment on contemporary things, but I found this because I've never watched this show. I might see clips on the internet from time to time, but sitting listening to full-length interviews of at times unhealthy and toxic behavior when it comes to men, when it comes to misogynoir and all these other labels that we put on problematic behavior, I try to not engage with that. But I saw RFK Jr. on there, and again, it's supposed to be a friendly setting where brothers are sitting around in a barbershop. So that's the setting. It's a barbershop setting. He has about 4 or 5 of his friends in there, and then you see RFK Jr. I didn't even know what RFK Jr. looked like until the recent fiasco with him making anti-Semitic comments. Somehow he's apparently making it out unscathed, despite his wife coming out and speaking out against the comments that he made or the beliefs that he may hold, which is always an interesting dynamic when your spouse comes out and speaks out against a belief that you espouse that must be a core belief. So if it's a core belief, then unless it's just a mistake, play as F up. I always say that, play as F up. But given where we are in 2023, given your status and your awareness, but again, once we get into who he is and some of his belief systems, then we'll say, oh, you know what, maybe he just doesn't have the awareness. But even with that being said, that makes you question not necessarily him. It makes you question his wife. And I know his wife is a famous actress. I don't want to speak out of term and identify her, but I want to say it's Larry David's wife in Curb Your Enthusiasm. When I saw the name, I was like, that name looks familiar. But again, you could correct me in the comments. So I saw RFK Jr. and I'm like, okay, I have nothing to do. Again, because I'm not buying into this idea of work. I'm going to rest at periods. And sometimes I engage in content that's somewhat frivolous at times. So I started listening to RFK Jr. and I was immediately frustrated. I wanted to yell. I wanted to turn it off. And I eventually did. I could only take about 45 to 50 minutes of the podcast. And the points that brought me to this point was first the ahistorical inaccuracies when it came to Dr. King, when it came to his father, who is Robert Kennedy. I'm sitting here listening to him talk about, again, this white savior idea, which he promotes, and maybe it's just because it's his father, right? We want to elevate our fathers into this role where, or have them be imagined to be these superheroes. I hope my son and my daughter do it for me one day. But you sit here and listen to him talk about his father and how he was a champion of the black community and civil rights, and there's some legitimacy there. However, whiteness still prevails, right? Whiteness still prevails. So he started talking about how his father and Dr. King and Ralph Abernathy, and how there needed to be encouragement from Robert Kennedy Jr. to get Dr. King involved in the Vietnam War movement, again, making it seem like his father is the reason that Dr. King, that Ralph Abernathy, that SNCC and these other organizations who are committed to the work, who are committed to poor folk, that they needed the swang of his father. And this is where I sat and I continue to critique the I critique hip hop and hip hop figures specifically, or anybody, but specifically hip hop, because I only care about, I'm not gonna say I only care about black folk, but I center black liberation. So when we have these types of individuals on platforms and powerful platforms like Math Hoffa is, right, almost 1 million subscribers, which means something in this world. To not have somebody who's politically inclined, to not have somebody who's steeped in Africana, steeped in black history up there with them. I know for me, if I'm sitting there interviewing RFK Jr., yes, I may take the interview, but I'm going to go have somebody. I'm going to bring somebody who's well-versed in areas where I'm continuing to hone my skills when it comes to our memory of things that have transpired, those who are really in the trenches, those who are more well-read than I, who are in the political space, one that I don't frequent. Because why? It's important for me to not necessarily hold this white man accountable, but it's important to make sure that we at least calling out the BS and not offering platforms for what Stephen A. Smith say, bloviate, and just say whatever it is that they're feeling, which again is not rooted in anything of, number one, substance, but of accuracy. And so again, it's not just Math Hoffa, it's Charlemagne, it's Ice Cube, I'm trying to think of other black folk who I haven't seen come out to push back against the curriculum in Florida. Again, that's another conversation, but you notice who's silent when things like this come up. But if people want to come to their platforms and I guess it's mutual using, it's a barter-esque system, because hey, I'm going to get the views from RFK's people who might not necessarily frequent the space. If I have Kamala Harris, if I have Joe Biden, if I have these individuals come on the Breakfast Club or these other spaces, what does that mean? That means more viewership. But what does that mean for black folk? So as I sit and I'm listening to RFK talk even more, it got to a point where they were talking about a water crisis in polluted water in the New York area. And he talked about how he, as a lawyer, there was a map that had all of these black spots where it was getting poor water. Again, notice the language that he's using, but it was one speck of white where where good water and clean water was going, and it was going to the mayor's house. And he wanted to understand reasoning for that. And he said, I don't necessarily think it's racism, but it's, and I'm just like, what are we, is anybody going to say anything? Is anybody going to stop him dead in his tracks and confront him on what's being said? Or is this just a platform for him, again, to just espouse what it is that he desires? Which is okay, but you can't, I'm not going to even say it's okay. It's extremely problematic. It's extremely harmful. Now, one of the brothers up there did say, wait, so how is this not racism if we recognize that it's happening in predominantly black and brown areas, this polluted water? And he didn't really offer a response. And typically what happens in this space, in spaces like this, and it happened here, they moved away from it. They went to go have a conversation about something else. And at that point, for me, it was just like, I don't need to listen to this anymore. Because I recognize that platforms like Math Hoffa's, no disrespect, no shade, because again, and unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because I want to make sure my words are conveying exactly what I'm feeling. I was going to say, at least you're not out there harming anybody. right? Like physically harming anybody, because that's what we've come to in society, where okay, we can take psychological and emotional harm, post it on platforms, have these types of discussions in public, and say, well, you know what? At least you ain't shoot nobody. At least you ain't stab anybody. We recognize the impact of physical harm that it has on an individual, on a family, on a community, and the historical impact that it has. As does psychological harm by bringing somebody in who's an anti-vaxxer. Now, again, your beliefs are your beliefs, but to knowingly, and I doubt they even know about some of RFK's get downs, to knowingly bring somebody in who is an anti-vaxxer, somebody, and we talk about anti-vaxxer just overall. He's been anti-vax even pre-COVID, but to recognize the death and destruction that COVID took on black folk disproportionately compared to white people, to have this individual on and offering them your space, your platform, to have any type of discussion is harmful. He's a conspiracy theorist, claiming that Wi-Fi and cell phones are health threats. So when we were talking about 5G, remember, it's just like 5G. It's medically dangerous. They're trying to control the population through 5G. He one of them. He one of them ones. What else? He suggested that the cause of AIDS was the use of poppers, which are alkyl nitrite inhalants, not the human immunodeficiency virus. He blamed firearm deaths on psychiatric drugs, teenage depression on aluminum in vaccines. This is the individual you're introducing to Black America. And then when you read the comments, now granted, some of them are saying spam, some of them are supporters, but you have folk who are saying, listen, I would vote for him. Where the consequences of having him on your platform, and again, it just is just not endemic to Math Hoffa. We've recognized the power, quote unquote power, that individuals with platforms like these have. But I don't think they recognize it. They may see it from a monetary perspective. Because unfortunately, again, in a capitalistic society, this is how we view it. We don't view it in the sense of, you know, I have a powerful voice which can influence and impact community. And so that's why it's so important for those of us who do have platforms to counteract as best as we can. Listen, I got about 888,000 less followers than he. But hopefully the information that I bring out, that I offer the world, hopefully the individuals that I bring onto the platform to engage in robust conversation with, hopefully it's not harmful to this quest of Black liberation. And that's where we ask that Sonia Sanchez question again, whether it's Math Hoffa, whether it's Charlemagne, whether it's the Joe Budden podcast, and so on and so on and so on. How does it free us? How does having Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on free us? It doesn't. What it does is it may put money in your pocket to potentially create generational wealth for your family. But that doesn't translate into empowering an oppressed community. Listen, I ain't got the answers, man. I do not have the answers. Don't have these motherfuckers on your platforms. And that's really what the long short of it is. Don't have these people on your platforms, especially if it could potentially produce harm towards those that look like you. So as we move forward, and this is just going to be a brief update, because I'm upset. I understand why it's happening, and when I say I understand why it's happening, because America is America. So Carlee Russell was arrested. She was charged with 2 misdemeanors. She did post bond because, again, in America, our accountability is through the legal justice system, or the legal system, rather, excuse me. It's not through rehabilitation. It's not necessarily through restorative justice. It's through punitive measures. So, which could potentially be a teachable moment for Carlee, and maybe for others, even though I don't believe as such. Because penalization of this magnitude doesn't necessarily dissuade others from exhibiting similar behaviors. And so if we're saying that an individual like Carlee, who may or may not have mental health issues, I know which side I lean on. If we say that she has mental health issues, then we know that there's, number one, a distinct possibility that this may happen again. Number two, something worse could happen. And number three, I don't know what number 3 is, but I figured I'd just throw out a number 3 anyway. But ultimately, she was arrested for the kidnapping hoax, and it's frustrating because you see the viciousness, the callousness, the lack of humanity from individuals within society. And that's why I often say, and I've heard it from other elders, there is no we here. Because if we cared about community, we will be advocating for her getting some type of treatment. We will advocate for understanding the underlying issues, because you're not going to get to the heart of what took place in the span of 2.5 weeks. Unless if she's not severely ill, which then it becomes, it could potentially become apparent. But no, the conversations over time, talking with family, talking with friends, talking with her, to truly suss out what was occurring. But this is one of those ideas where we kill them all, let God sort them out. We incarcerate them all. Mental health related issues or not. And then if it comes to light, then hey, you know what? At least they're off the street. Because we don't adequately, there's no way. It's not adequately addressed here in the United States. Dare I say, across the world. So I'm not going to belabor this. You could go listen to a previous podcast of Rhetorically Speaking where I discussed this at length. I think I'm so just miffed by it all that my thoughts related to her, it's just so unfortunate. Even when I look at her mugshot and I see a smile, but I see an aloofness in her eyes, which again, you have to see it to truly understand it. I'm not posting it here. I don't post mugshots of black folk on my platform. So, listen, I'm out of here. Hopefully you watch it. If I may get banned from LinkedIn from talking whatever. If you like it, again, hit the like button, the comment button, the share button, subscribe. It's always appreciated. Until next time, peace.